everybody. This is Matt with New Era Superintendents and the Disrupting Education for Good podcast. Conquering the achievement crisis in American education requires disruption and bold leadership. We're going to share stories here from superintendents who are doing that and other thought leaders on the education landscape who are disrupting education for good. Maybe you're a disruptor. If you are, send us a note at the New Era Superintendents website. That's newerasuperintendents.com. Subscribe to New Era every place you see us, and enjoy this episode of Disrupting Education for Good. Welcome back to Disrupting Education for Good from New Era Superintendents. Thanks for being back here with us for this episode with Dr. Coglianese, the superintendent of the Crete-Monee School District in Crete, Illinois. So Dr. Coglianese, thanks for being with us today.
Thank you so much for having me. I appreciate it.
Well, you're welcome. And Dr. Coglianese is also a member of New Era Superintendents, and we're looking forward to her contributions and leadership in our community in the coming year. So we're talking about disruption in education. And before we get into a couple of thoughts on disruption and where things are headed, where things might head, where we want them to head.
Yeah.
A little bit about your district and your leadership and some of what you're working on currently that's connected to New Era's mission of increasing achievement opportunities for all students. What's happening in your district? You've just wrapped up the school year. What's on your mind and heart right now?
So I'll tell you a little bit about my district. We are a pre-K-12 school district. We service about 4,300 students. We have about 700 staff members, and we're a high poverty, high needs community. And that has been probably a joy to my life as far as working with staff and students that are here working from their hearts. So my role here in the last 8 years is trying to really embed ourselves with the communities and transform what we were to being a shining star in some of the broader Chicagoland area schools based on some of the work that we're doing. Some of the things that we're working on transforming, I think, that are dear to my heart is, again, we're all recovering out of COVID. COVID, talk about the biggest disruptor. It was going along and having to stop everything that we knew how to do and really punt into something that we didn't know how. And coming out of COVID taught us a lot of lessons. It taught us the value of mental health. First of all, the health of ourselves, the health of our students, that significantly changed. So what has been near to my heart is really focusing on really the health and wellness of our staff and our students so that they can learn and achieve. We had a real academic digression after COVID. And so we are focusing on strategies that are more focused on students' mental health, career pathways, and supporting our staff. And we are beginning to see some gains from that.
Okay. And are things, how is attendance? How is student attendance in the district now?
Again, climbing out of COVID, it was sketchy. We've got complete school attendance right now, which has been great.
All right. When you look at American education on the large scale and we think about achievement, and we hear a lot all the time about the achievement crisis. In the macro, it seems that it's there, and we're all working on it. Mm-hmm. Where are we the weakest? And when I say the weakest, I'm not trying to get to any kind of a criticism or evaluation of who's doing what wrong, so much as what opportunities does that create for us? And for you as a leader, how do you come at that? Like, where are we ripe for disruption?
So I think, again, I keep coming back to coming out of COVID. I think we are dealing with a different student than we left prior to COVID, and our teaching hasn't changed that much. Yes, we've added more virtual kinds of pieces. We're more comfortable with those Zoom calls and having Google Classrooms. We're more comfortable with that. But what we have found, our students are still thriving or needing that interpersonal response. They're spending too much time on their computers now. And so what we're seeing is this need to go back a little bit more to really focus on social skills and having our students work together. They are having conflicts with one another. They can be very short-tempered. They can't persist in tasks. So we're having to go back, and we're also seeing an uptick in school discipline because of these kinds of things. So we're having to go back and recalibrate how we're teaching to really adapt more to today's student. And that actually does affect student achievement because what we're doing isn't working.
So what are you doing? So what are you doing that is working?
So we are reassessing. We had Chromebooks for every student in our district from kindergarten all the way to 12th grade. And we were doing a great job getting all of our students access at home. And what we are finding is we're having to now back that off at the K2 levels, that our kids are almost spending too much time on the computers, especially at those key ages where they're needing to have more cooperative learning skills. They're working in small groups. They're learning how to solve conflicts. We're having to teach those skills. And so that's something that we are now going back and changing and readdressing.
Okay. All right. So is this going in the direction of getting kids off of screens? Is that fair to say that this is, I'm guessing it's not only about getting kids off of screens, but how big of a part of what you're trying to do involves getting kids off of screens?
Well, we are looking to take Chromebooks back out of them and not send them home anymore. It has its place within the classroom, but a small place. Computers should only have been a tool to gain information, but right now we're using it to teach kids. So
I'm sorry.
yeah, so we're having to take a step back from that.
Or do you have students reading out of books, reading out of physical books?
Most of them are all reading off of a Chromebook. And we know that that is not always the best for some students that need the tactile stimulations of turning those pages, underlining a key phrase, and we've lost that.
Is there an attempt to bring more of that back?
We are beginning to look into this. We just started figuring out how we're going to undo or reduce to some extent the amount of time and figure out, do we need to start bringing back some textbooks in some capacities, maybe not all of them, but short stories and novels and, good quality literature for them to work in a small group without having these tablets in front of their faces and they're not interacting.
Yeah, it's really an interesting question because there is this movement. It's small, but in American education, mostly outside of public education, where parents are increasingly interested in, we could just, maybe an easy way to say it is, old school approaches and classical approaches, because it gets kids back into books. We're advocates of technology at New Era. We see technology as one of the key tools to increase achievement. And we're pro-technology. We're not anti-computer or anti-screen or anti-mobile phone, but just the opposite for the good uses of all of any technology. And with the arrival of AI as such a force that we're trying to keep up with every day, creates some questions for us about how to harness that, I guess, doesn't it?
Exactly. Too much of a good thing, right? And again, it's I call it adjusting. It's not getting rid of. It's about the adjusting and being mindful of what you're trying to accomplish by using various tools. Various tools are to get to a certain end. And so each one has its own purpose and unique aspects of it. So just being mindful of what each of them does and what you're trying to accomplish.
Well, if we go back to the mental health question and the wellness question.
Yeah.
Because there were a lot of problems that were created from the COVID era on this. What are some of the things you're doing? Like some examples of what's working to set kids up for success in achievement.
I could tell you, for example, and this gets back to that question you had, chronic truancy, especially at the high school level. What we are finding at more and more students have come back to us with high anxiety. I can't tell you how many students have anxiety, and they have a difficult time even going into classrooms with full classroom support. So we are now creating alternative pathways where we're allowing students to go and do some online classes and some classes in person to adjust for some of that. We're allowing them to start focusing on compacting the curriculum so they can do more access to employment. Trades kinds of things. A lot of our students are not going to be college bound. So we are focusing on giving them experiences to enhance their trades and giving them more access to those employments. That encourages students to show up to school because they feel that there's meaning behind showing up now. It's just not going in and turning in your homework. Our students are smarter than that now. They see the end game. And so everything has to be meaningful to them.
Is your district leading the way in some aspects in this? What do you see other districts doing when it comes to career pathways? And not all kids are going to go to college, and college is getting more expensive every year. And there's a bunch of stuff around that might make it less likely for it to be a pathway for kids when it should be. Maybe ironically, we expect it to be otherwise. So you're encouraging career pathways, you're encouraging trades. What do you see other districts doing on this front?
I think everyone's beginning to wake up to this
Uh-huh.
because I think everyone realizes that things have to be different for today's students. How we teach today's students is completely different. And even our staff coming in, you got the millennials, the X's,
Yeah.
they teach differently and they want their own PD differently. So you have to shift for all of that and make it more meaningful to their styles.
How does individualized or personalized models come into this? Personalized instruction opportunities.
I think personalized instruction is the key. If you think about what most kids have, all your news is personalized. Think about yourself. You've got
Uh-huh.
your cell phone, you've got your algorithms, you probably have the same feeds that are coming through
Mhm.
that are customized to your interests. Even what you shop for is being customized to your personal interests. See all of our students doing selfies, Snapchats, everything's about the individual. And so I think sometimes students, when they go into a large classroom and you see teachers presenting one model, one size does not fit all. Everything has to be customizable. So that's why the personalized learning is a fantastic tool to really fine tune what students need. And if they want to go in a certain career path, you can fine tune what those interests are and hook them that way.
And we have time for, I think, three more things. AI. What's happening in your district with AI? What is your perspective and your approach, and what are you doing?
AI is becoming organic. I think everyone's kind of stumbling onto it with the free stuff
Mhm.
that's on the web and their phones, and everything's just being thrown in your lap. People are trying to figure it out as you go. Students have already figured that out too, and how they're submitting papers that are AI generated, even focusing on tests or homework. Those things, they're just going to the AI. The AI is spitting out the answers.
Yeah.
So it went ahead of us, I think, before we were ready for it. We are still working to harness that, just like years ago when we had to do research papers and they said, oh, don't use Wikipedia. It could be wrong. It's the same thing. We've got to teach students how to work with it and how to adjust for it. So, your program doesn't hallucinate and give you just oddball answers. You got to go through and really work and refine it. There's nothing wrong with that, but it's got to be used as a tool and not giving you the answers. What I'm doing, at least with our students, I'm spending a lot of time with providing things for staff development right now. And then eventually that's going to lead into student achievement. For staff development, with our new staff members coming in, they don't want to sit through a workshop. So we are creating our own branded avatars that delivers training for them, even how to fill out their FMLA. They no longer call our office. There's a program where they can go on and ask how to fill that out. We're including chatbots with all of our board policies. Board members, you may not know how to do a policy. Parents, you may not know what's in that handbook because no one's reading anymore. We're adding chatbots to those. So parents just ask the question and it pops it up in there. So we are beginning to work with the technology to help our staff, our families, and then of course that's going to trickle down to our students.
All right. Good. Okay, we're going to ask our American Education magic wand question. If you had one, what would you do?
I would completely change the structure of education. We are still in an agrarian culture of summers off. We get to school 9 to 2, and we're still testing students. Tests don't mean anything, and other than to get you into a college if you're even going. And we spend millions of dollars on this. If we could come up with a model of going 4 days a week where we can tier our students, have less kids in the classroom, and have teachers focus on a smaller group, you can customize what those class sizes look like by creating schedules that are a little bit smaller. Students have more access to quality education. So we've got to change how we're doing school. It can no longer be, going 9 months of the year, 3 months off, and think that we're going to keep up.
Would you advocate year round?
Absolutely.
4-year,
Absolutely.
4-day weekend? And what happens with the fifth day? I mean, what we now have as the fifth day.
Just what we have is, with online learning, having students have assignments that they're working on at home. But that also requires working with your communities, because what do you do with working parents, right? So
Yep.
it creates its own problems, but it can be overcome if you've got a community that's working on this
Do you think
together.
you'll try anything like this?
The resistance is too great with people still holding on to their summers. And that's staff, it's for the parents. Parents like to take their kids on vacation sometimes. They don't want to have to, take not take those vacations. So we're still stuck in this model that we can't seem to get away from because there is pushback for going to year round.
Huge pushback. I mean, it's culturally embedded.
It is.
Summers off. Do you think, I wonder if there's some kind of an incentive arrangement that would make a year-round option work?
I have thought about that. I know some districts have done it where it's a choice. So you can offer it for those that are interested in really pushing forward. You can compact the curriculum. You can go much faster. You can embed that with getting them into dual enrollments into early college entrance with your local junior colleges. There's a lot of things you can do to change that. But I don't think you can force it on anybody. I think you have to have people come to it, and then word of mouth with all what it can offer, people eventually move forward into that lane.
Because wouldn't it be possible to do what we now have is 4 years of high school? We could do it in 3 years.
Absolutely.
We could get a year of college done. You could actually, if you're a very motivated kid or become a very motivated student because of whatever, maybe the incentive is I'm going to actually gain 2 years in my life. Like not a lot. I wouldn't have thought that way in high school.
Right.
But we would think that way later. So it sounds like it's not going to work as just a bang, let's do it. Boom.
Right.
Year round, that's the way it is. There is too much resistance to that. But as an option for students who want to speed up their track to the next thing in life.
And it even saves families financially because college is really expensive right now. So if you can in fact, we had one student graduate high school with a 2-year AA degree from junior college because they were able to do both at the same time. So the parents were only on the hook for 2 years of college. So it's a huge financial savings for those that are incentivized financially, let alone with, getting them started on their pathway.
And then the student starts earning sooner. So the tuition cost gets cut in this example by half. And even more than that because of the 2 years of community college versus a larger institution or a 4-year institution.
Yeah, absolutely.
And then starts earning 2 years sooner. So there's a lot of incentive in there for a motivated individual.
Yes, absolutely. So I was going to say that's my wish for the world. And if I was around long enough to start seeing that trend come in and make that be choices, maybe districts that offer that, districts that don't. As we start thinking outside the box of school funding, that's a whole nother conversation here.
Oh, it is.
But, creating incentives for families, people want choices. And right now we don't offer anybody choices.
This is a good thread for a new era summit event. When we have the superintendents together to talk about this. Because there's a lot more to talk about here.
Well, there absolutely is. And it's a matter of finding people that are willing to take the risks, find people that in your community that are willing to, step up and be early innovators, early adopters on these kinds of things.
Last question for now. What keeps you going? What motivates you? You're doing one of the toughest jobs. We often characterize the superintendency, it's described well in a Van Morrison song, lonely at the top. It's a lonely leadership position.
What excites me every day is I'm a very creative person and I'm always innovative. I'm always trying to find ways to solve tomorrow's problems. And I love working with people within my community. I love working with people on my staff that have this synergy. And that just gets me up every day. And it keeps me smiling and keeps me motivated coming every day to this job.
And when you can say it keeps you smiling, that's a big statement because you know what, it might sound cliche, but it's infectious, isn't it?
It is, because it comes back to saying, we can't sit and complain about, there's so much to complain about, but we all have the power to engage and we're empowered to do something about it. And I'm always the one that says, I don't sit on the sidelines. I'm going to be somebody that makes those changes.
That's awesome. Well, we're glad that you're bringing that spirit and power into the New Era community. And thank you for today. I just feel like we could keep going for a long time. There's a lot more, but we'll bring it back around and we'll continue in the Situation Room.
I was looking forward to it.
Thank you.
Thanks for your time with me today.
Thanks for being here. You're welcome. We'll see you next time.
Okay. Bye-bye.